Greetings, Guardians, my name is Byfear. So it's been a long time since the last video I made. Apologies on that one. I was taking a scheduled break 2 weeks prior to this, and that's when the last video went out. And then, the last week, I was supposed to be back, but my voice, well, I mostly lost it for a few days, and I had to recover it. I have an amazing wife, and a lot of her fantastic tea, as well as her diligence, is to thank for even getting me to the state where I am here, and I'm nasally, and I'm making videos again, so thank you, Elle. Either way, we're back. In this next month, I really wanted to round out the rest of the lore from Witch Queen and the content that is needed to cover it properly. Things that I missed will be included in that, and that includes all sorts of stuff about Rasputin, the Lucent Tales lore book, some more lore on the Cabal and Lord Saladin, and some other tidbits here and there before the season is out. First though, I wanted to return to the channel by taking a moment to talk about something that's really interesting, a little bit of lore that only just emerged properly, lore that comes from the Star Jasmine ship. I'll cut to the chase. This is one of those interactions between Savathun and a Guardian, one where the Guardian was either captured and essentially held hostage to Savathun's monologue, or alternatively, tried to convince Savathun that she could indeed be on our side. Really intriguing, especially given the context and timing. So yeah, we'll talk more about that in a second, but first of all, a little background about this ship. Star Jasmine is a remarkable lore tab, and you might not have heard of it thus far, and that's purely because, well, the lore tab was broken prior to this. It used to share a lore tab related to a piece of, I think, Titan raid armor, maybe Hunter raid armor prior to this, if I'm not mistaken. So the real lore behind this one wasn't available to read or decipher for the most part. Now, however, it's been fixed, and we can read the real lore behind this ship, which is a good thing, seeing as that entirety of the lore there is all about this Guardian and their encounter with Savathun, and it may have been around about the time before the season of the hunt happened if we're reading all this lore correctly. It's a really fascinating story, so let's start at the beginning and talk a little bit more about it when we've read it. The lore tab for the Star Jasmine reads as follows. Type: recovered sensor logs. Parties: 2 human type, designate Umina, Osiris. 1 Ascendant Hive, designate Savathun. 81 Hive type, designate Unknown. Associations: Light, Umina. Darkness, Savathun, Hive. Engines offline. Life support offline. Sensors nominal. Audio recovered. Transcript follows. Is that Osiris? Osiris, can you hear me? Reverence, please, child. He is the first to see this realm. What did you do to him? He merely sleeps to dream a better world, one that I awaken to make reality. Rebooting. Some kind of fountain? It is the trough at which gods gorge. And so you're going to feed me to them there? Nothing so dramatic, Lightbearer. You will be a scent, a texture, an added detail no one would notice, but whose absence would be felt. After all, one cannot cast a shadow without light. But with Osiris's light... Wait, are you saying Sagira is gone? Then he doesn't have... Rebooting. What you're saying is true, then we're on the same side. No, child. We work to the same ends. Our roads are quite different. You don't have to do this. An end must be reached, a journey chosen. We are not all of us burdened by the comforting lie of false sacrifice. Please, all I require is to relieve you of that burden. Rebooting. The vessel's sensors appear to be recording. Dispose of it. So, we can sort of place the timing of this lore tab thanks to a few key context points given to us by Umina, the Guardian, in this particular instance. Umina tells us that Osiris is there, asks what Savathun has done to Osiris, and more importantly has questions about Sagira and realizes that Sagira is dead. These are all important pieces of contextual information regarding timing, and it tells us that all of this must have happened before the season of the hunt, but quite crucially, it will have happened after Osiris's investigations into the Hive and the cryptoliths of Xivu Arath. This gives us a really precise timeline for this, which tells us that all of this must have happened just prior to the Season of the Hunt's beginning. But also, it tells us something further in this lore tab, which is not only the time, but I believe the place. I believe that Umina somehow discovered Osiris within Savathun's throne world. And this is the point at which I'm not entirely sure how Umina did that. That's an entire series of questions all unto itself. Did Umina somehow get in by mistake? Is Umina a hidden agent who had special access? Was Umina using some kind of hidden cipher? Or perhaps, and I believe this is the answer to it all, did Savathun let them in? And this is the point at which I think we can look further into all of this and try to truly decipher what Umina's place in Savathun's plans really was. For context, Umina is a guardian that we've never heard of before, so we know nothing about them. We don't actually even have pronouns for this one, so we don't know if Umina was a man or a woman or non-binary or anything in between. It's why I've been referring to them as them throughout this entire video. What I mean by this is simply the fact that we know nothing about them, and therefore we can't understand what their motivation really was. Were they sympathetic to the Hive? Were they more understanding? Did they have some kind of tie to the hidden? All of these are important pieces of information that we are missing as a result of all of this. And so furthermore, I feel like it's worth understanding the fact that Umina is, in this way, sort of a blank template for the writers to do whatever they want with. And I think it's also all the more fitting considering that Savathun clearly killed them in some manner or another. In a strange way, as Umina towards the end of this lore tab states that Savathun and them are on the same side, I believe that Umina represents, in a very strange way, the death of Destiny's binary moral narrative. That is to say, the idea that light is good and darkness is evil. That idea is completely shattered when Umina states that them and Savathun must be on the same side. That in spite of Savathun's darkness, she opposes the greater threat of the Witness, and the true evil that lies at its heart. By sitting there and stating that Umina and Savathun must be on the same side, Umina has suddenly broken any notion that it is as simple as the Hive and the Darkness are evil and the Guardians and the Traveller are good. It's not that simple anymore, and Umina is perhaps one of the first of us to truly realize this. Remember that with the timing of this, the Guardians would have only just begun to start claiming the powers of darkness themselves. This was before anyone had truly claimed the power of stasis. So it's worth remembering there are only a few forerunners to this point that truly understood this. I think we are one of them, as is Eris Morn, as is the Drifter, as is the Exo-Stranger. But all of that should be unsurprising. After all, we were the first Guardian to embrace stasis canonically, and also, it's worth remembering that the other three in this equation had all embraced some form of darkness to fight for the good a long time prior. So Umina is, in a certain way, a representation of the larger Guardian populace, I think. But there is a bigger point here that needs to be made, and that's about the practicalities around Umina's unfortunate passing. Umina is supposedly fed to this fountain, this trough from which the gods drink. And I think it's worth thinking here about what that is. I personally believe that that is the wellspring. Now, again, I don't have much evidence for this, and I don't think anyone would have any evidence for many theories, but I think it's important to remember a few contextual things about the wellspring, so let me go ahead and have Martin play back a few clips from Destiny Lore Vault that give you context about the wellspring and what it is.
That did it. The wellspring is ours.
For now, maybe. You can bet it'll be overrun again soon. The Scorn want the wellspring real bad, which means the Hive will be close by.
If the Hive are this determined to protect the wellspring, it must mean the Scorn intend to destroy it.
Yeah, well, that I don't doubt. Big old pyramid hanging out nearby. Savathun put a pretty hefty light curse on it. And she used the wellspring to make it happen. Whatever's inside there, she didn't want it escaping, I know that much.
Then we must keep the Scorn from destroying it.
Honestly, at this rate, I don't think they even need it destroyed. That curse gets weaker every time they attack.
Then we have little choice. The wellspring must be defended at all costs. Guardian,
Say no more, Ikora. We're on it. Ikora, the Lucent Hive are rallying in large numbers at Savathun's fortress. Something's up.
We've been monitoring their activity in that area. It appears they're after a significant source of light within.
Sorry to intrude, but I believe you're referring to Savathun's wellspring, her main source of light distribution across the throne world?
So they're not after it. They're defending it.
Bingo. It's like, they want control. And if they get it, that's power against the Scorn and us.
Then we'll stop them, no matter what. Ikora, the Scorn have made it into Savathun's fortress in heavy numbers. We think they're after the source of light within.
Likely it's a strategic move against the Lucent Hive.
Hey, so sorry to butt in. It's a bit more than that. That source of light, Savathun called it the wellspring.
Here they come.
It's her main point of light distribution across the throne world. If the Scorn control it or destroy it, we'll all be hurting. Real bad.
Then we'll protect it at all costs.
That wellspring, held the whole place together since long before I got here. Yeah, there won't be a throne world if the Scorn take it. You get me?
So there's a little bit more context on the wellspring generally, and I have a bit of a strange theory here, but one that might make some sense, hopefully, and one that I think is important because of one of the clips that I played back for you there. And that's namely the fact that the wellspring was used to put a light curse on the pyramid that was sunken in the Disciples' Bog, Rulk's pyramid. Remember that the Upended was Rulk's weapon that was going to be used in order to destroy Savathun's throne world if she ever turned traitor. And this is something that Savathun clearly knew about. We know this because of the Warlock bond from the Vow of the Disciple raid. But perhaps more importantly than this, if Savathun knew this, she would know to make a counter, which is why she used a Curse of Light from the Wellspring. But if the Wellspring existed prior to it being this great hub of light and all of its power, then at some point perhaps it was a source of darkness. Now, to reread that line really quickly of what's said between Umina and Savathun about the Wellspring, the line reads, "Some kind of fountain, it is the trough at which the gods gorge, and you're going to feed me to them." And Savathun then says, "Nothing so dramatic, Lightbearer. You will be a scent, a texture, an added detail no one would notice, but whose absence would be felt. After all, one cannot cast a shadow without light." So that, I think, is what's really important about this. I think that Umina was fed to the Wellspring specifically because they wouldn't be noticed, but because they would allow some kind of light to be spread out across the throne world prior to Savathun claiming the light for herself. It makes me wonder then if this is how Savathun, in her infancy of her second life, without having truly remembered who she was able to be saved from Rulk. I wonder whether this is the cause and the source of the light curse upon Rulk's pyramid. Again, all of what I've just mentioned with regards to the curse and the wellspring here is very much my own theory, so don't take that as something that is canon. We don't know what's going on here. For all we know, this fountain, the trough at which the gods gorge, isn't even the wellspring. But if it is, maybe this gives us a little bit of an answer. It would also explain why Osiris's light wasn't usable for this, because, well, Osiris's light at this point was non-existent. It was gone. His ghost Sagira was dead. Something else that pushes me towards this idea and this theory is the fact that Umina at a certain point came to the conclusion that them and Savathun were on the same side, and I feel like they would only have been able to come to this conclusion if Savathun told them about the witness. If Savathun told them about the witness, and more importantly, about the threat that it posed, and perhaps even about the threat that it posed within her own throne world, namely Rulk and his pyramid. If this is the case, then I don't believe that Umina is responsible for all of the light at the center of the wellspring. I believe that that is now some vestige of Savathun's power, or the light that she collected over time. But regardless, I think that it's worth remembering that Umina is dead, and if they have been sacrificed to the wellspring, then there's a more fascinating question as to the reason why. I think we can speculate on it, but I don't think we know it definitively. Maybe someone else has a better idea of what this is, and if they do, please let me know, because I'm not sure I have the answers on this one. But it's a Guardian that interacted with Savathûn. That's the key point. They interacted with Savathûn and interacted with them prior to us claiming the power of stasis, to us walking this path towards the Witch Queen's ultimate plan. This may have been one of the first steps on her journey after the interference, and it's fascinating now that we know it. But that's going to be all from me for now. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you did enjoy, go ahead and remember to leave a like, and of course remember that your own thoughts, as always, are welcome in the comments section down below. If you want more Destiny lore content like this, also remember to hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications, especially as we close in on that coveted 1 million subscribers. Thank you very much for watching, and as per usual, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Parodassia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.